I didn't have no middle name, and when I joined the Army, they put that G on there, and
Okay.
I've been going by that ever since.
Okay, today is December 22nd, 1987, and my name is Joe Todd.
Who?
Joe Todd, T-O-D-D.
Todd.
Yeah, and this is an interview with Mr. Jesse Glasgow in Sulphur, Oklahoma. Sir, where were you born?
Leon down here on Red River.
Leon, Oklahoma. When's your birthday?
August the 22nd, 1893. 93 I was born.
1893. Okay. Who was your father?
George Houston, Glasgow.
Okay. And your mother?
Liza Sprowls.
S-P-R...
O-W-L-S.
O-W-L-S. Okay. Were your parents from Oklahoma?
No. Dad was born in Arkansas somewhere. I don't know just where. And mother, she was born in, she moved to Oklahoma when she was, her granddad when she was a baby.
Yeah, okay. What kind of work did your father do?
They farmed.
Farmer? Mm-hmm. Could you tell me as a small boy what chores you did on the farm?
Well, just everything that come along, it had to be done. I done it all.
Mm-hmm. Do you go to school in Leon?
No. Our dad moved to Noble, I don't know what, and then he moved from Noble here to Sulphur when I was 6 years old.
Okay. Do you go to school here in Sulphur?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How big was Sulphur in those days?
Very small. And what town used to be when we moved here was right here where all this up in here. All this other Sulphur here in West Sulphur, I seen that all grow up.
Yeah. Did they still have, did people come down here to drink the water and bathe in the water in those years?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did they have a big, I guess was it a resort in those days?
Well, they come down here and drank that water, and then they'd carry a lot of it back with them.
What kind of work did your father do here in Sulphur?
Well, when we first come here, he run a dray wagon all over the country, putting stuff in here in the wagon.
Did you help him on the dray wagon?
No, I wasn't big enough.
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember Statehood Day when Oklahoma joined the Union? Where were you living at that time?
Out here west of town, 2 miles.
Was there a big celebration in Sulphur?
Hmm?
Was there a celebration in Sulphur that day?
Well, it's been so long, I've done forgot.
Yeah. Okay. What year did you join the Army?
I guess it was in 18.
18. Where'd you take your basic training?
Demings, New Mexico.
Deming, New Mexico. Tell me about basic. What type of training did you have?
Well, it's just an army training, so drilling and stuff like that.
What weapon did you train with?
Do what now?
What weapon what rifle did you train with?
Well, we started out with I don't see, what was it they used that? Then they got hold of them Springfield.
Springfield? Yeah. You have a Craig Jorgensen?
Hmm?
You ever trained with the Craig Jorgensen rifle?
No.
Yeah, okay. After basic, where'd they send you?
To Germany?
What ship did you go to France on?
I don't remember what the name of it was. It was an old English cattle boat. And they had transferred it into a boat to carry us across with.
How many men were on the boat?
I don't remember, but there were several of them.
Do you remember where you landed in France?
Schuresburg.
Schuresburg. How long did the trip take to get over?
13 days.
13 days. You get seasick?
Yeah.
Tell me about the food on the ship. What'd you have to eat?
Well, they had a little of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it you couldn't eat it.
Where'd you sleep on the ship?
They had bunks made on the sleep on, so slept on the floor.
Mm-hmm. Did you sleep on the floor or on a bunk?
I slept on the floor.
On the floor? Mm-hmm.
Used my shoes for a pillow.
What kind of uniform did you have?
Well, they had the on the uniform, wool on the floor.
Oh, wool?
Yeah, that had them fatigue clothes, you know.
What kind of boots did you have?
Which
Yeah, what color boots did you have? Were they black or brown?
didn't have those boots, just used them old shoes.
Shoes. With the leggings?
Yeah. Old right leggings.
Were they easy to wrap? How'd you wrap those leggings? You have trouble doing it?
No, not much.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them didn't look nice, but they made out with it.
So what'd you do when you landed in France?
Well, when we first landed, when I went across, I signed up to order the cook for the wait on officers when we went across. And old English boat, they didn't have enough men to wait on the whole bunch, and so we had to. I was kitchen order for the men there on the boat.
When did they send you to the front?
When?
Yeah.
Well, I was on the way to the front when Armistice was signed. See, I left Georgia and went to off from here to the Army in June. I forget what day it was. And then I went to basic training in New Mexico. And then from there to Camp Dixon, New Jersey.
Then to France.
And then to France.
How were you traveling when the armistice was signed? Were you on trains or were you walking?
Walking.
Walking. What did you do when you heard the armistice was signed?
Well, we did hardly believe it.
Did you all celebrate?
Why, you know that we did.
What'd you do?
I don't remember.
So after the armistice was signed, where'd you go?
Well, we went to Germany.
What part of Germany? Do you remember?
Let's see, I was in 2 or 3 different places over I spent the winter in Adenoy,
Adenoy?
Adenoy, Germany.
What part of Germany is that located? Is it near Cologne or Frankfurt? Or?
No, it's in, I guess it was in the western part, I imagine.
What'd you do there?
Well, after we went there, we had the police up there clean up them towns.
What was your job in those towns? What'd you do?
Well, we policed the towns.
What were you looking for? Or who were you looking for?
We wasn't looking for anything. We were just trying to keep them quiet.
How long did you stay in Germany?
About a year.
About a year?
Mm-hmm.
And what ship did you return to the States on?
Martha Washington.
Martha Washington. Tell me about that trip.
Well, it's a pretty nice trip. We crossed back in 7 days.
7 days. How come it took longer going over?
Well, we was a little convoy when we went across. There was, I don't know, about 13, 14 ships on the road when we went across, and a couple of battleships with us.
What battleships were with you? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Where'd you land in the States?
New York.
You passed the Statue of Liberty? What'd you think of it when you saw it?
Well, it looked good.
How big's that statue?
Well, I couldn't tell you.
But it looked mighty good though.
It looked a lot.
How long did you stay in New York?
I didn't stay that long.
You returned to Oklahoma?
Yeah. Couldn't just get us around and get us out.
What'd you do after the war?
I farmed
Where?
up here at Roff,
What'd you raise?
corn and cotton.
How many pounds of cotton could you pick in one day?
Well, most I ever picked was 500 or something. And there come the rain. I'd eat it about 4 o'clock when rain just out. I got on up by then. But I averaged about 300 picking all the time.
You ever pull bowls?
Yeah. Pull about 700 a day.
Was there a cotton gin in Roff?
Yeah, there was 3 gins there.
Which gin did you use?
The farmer's gin mostly.
Do you know who ran it?
No, I don't. I don't remember.
What kind of cotton were you raising? What was the name of it?
Well, I don't remember.
What kind of house did you have there at Roff?
Well, we just had a little box house.
Were you married?
No, wasn't married then.
What year did you get married?
'22 or 3, and I don't remember which.
Let me back up and ask, while you were heading toward the front, what were you thinking about going into war?
It didn't bother me a bit.
Do you think it'd come out okay?
I figured it would.
How long did you stay at Roff?
About 60 some years.
60-some years. How did the Depression affect you and your family? 1930s.
Well, it was hard on everybody.
Did you make it okay in those years?
Yeah.
Also, let me ask, do you remember the blizzard of 1911?
I can't remember.
About the flu epidemic.
Well, it was pretty rough, I'll tell you. I was in I was at Camp Dixon, New Jersey when that happened.
How many soldiers got sick?
Well, now, I don't know. There's a bunch of them.
Many of them die?
Plenty of them. Plenty of them.
Was that flu also in Europe?
I don't know. I know we lost about 1,700 men out of our division.
What division were you in?
Well, I went across to the 34th, and I was transferred to the 4th Division after I got across. The Buckley Law Division up made replacements out of us.
How many of the soldiers died in Europe of the flu?
I don't know.
Did you have the flu?
Well, I had it, but I never did go to bed with it.
What about World War II? What did you do during that war?
Well, I was married in Fondest.
Did you do any work for the war effort? What's your fondest memory of France?
Well, I wasn't in France for very little. They just rushed us right on through.
What about Germany? What's your fondest memory of Germany?
Well, it was a pretty nice outfit, pretty nice place. Them German people, they treated you good.
I was going to ask, what was their attitude toward the Americans, the German people?
Well, they helped a lot of them, I'll tell you. They said it was just like we was, they had to fight.
Did you go to England?
Yeah, I landed in let's see, landed in the evening. Crossed the English Channel into France and Southampton.
How big was Lyon, where you were born?
I don't remember, it was just a small place.
Was this is this in the Chickasaw Nation?
Indian Territory.
Was this Chickasaw or Choctaw?
Well, I don't know what nation it was down there.
Yeah.
There's Choctaw around here.
Yeah. Did you know many of the Indians?
Well, I used to know a lot of them.
Any of them that came over the Trail of Tears?
If what now?
Any of the Indians that came over the Trail of Tears when they moved the Indians out here?
Well, they was all civilized then
Yeah.
when I was growing up.
Well, anything else about your time in the Army you want to talk about?
Well, I learned what it'd be.
Oh, just things that happened to you that you remember, that you can recall?
Not that I know of, if anything happened, I don't remember it.
Well, I think we have a good interview. I want to thank you for your help. What was your wife's name?
Palmer,
Mm-hmm. And when'd you get married, do you know?
I couldn't tell, I can't tell you just the date right now.
Mm-hmm. Where was she from?
She was born in Texas.
Texas. How many children do you have?
4.
4? Mm-hmm. Well, what else can we talk about?
Well, I don't know.
What do you want to talk about? Anything about the old days? How'd you celebrate your early Christmases?
Well, we thought that if we get a little candy and stuff, we thought we was doing good.
What was the biggest holiday you celebrated?
Well, I guess Christmas was about the biggest days then.
Do you know what kind of house your parents had when you were born?
No, I don't.
Tell me, on the farm, what work did you have to do on the wagons to keep the wagons working? Like, grease the...
Grease the wheels and press one thing and another.
How do you grease the wheels?
Well, they had them taps on them axles. You screw them off and then take a hold of the wheel and pull it out so far so you wouldn't let it down on the ground and smear grease on the axle. And push that wheel back and put the tap on.
How do you take that tap off?
They had a wrench, fit up about that long.
About a foot long?
It just fit the tap. And it fit on the, well, the hole through the double tree, the pins that made the handle made the pin for the double tree, the hole
Okay.
on the tongue.
Yeah. So that wrench held the double tree and took the tap off too?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How'd you keep the tires tight?
Well, sometimes you didn't.
You ever lose a tire?
Oh yeah.
What do you do then?
Well, we just work it back on and wrap water on it, hold it on till you get it fixed.
How'd you fix it?
Well, you had to take it to the blacksmith shop and they'd take them off and heat them and shrink them.
Mm-hmm. How do you shrink a tire?
Well, just had them out hot, then tempered the water somewhere or other. I don't know just how they had them. Brought them up, but when they put that water on them without the shrinkage of the wood on them.
Well, I think we have good information. Anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I don't know what it would be.
Oh, anything about the early days. Were either one of your grandfathers in the Civil War?
I don't know.
And did your parents ever tell you why they moved to Oklahoma? Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
They come the second Tuesday, but this time we moved them 1 week, so they're coming tonight.
Ready?
Okay. You got the new tape in there? No. Okay.
Sir, what's your full name?
Dixon Osborne.
Dixon Osborne.
Gonna give me a sentence to the penitentiary.
Okay, this is December 22nd, 1987. This is Joe Todd, an interview with Mr. Dixon Osborne in Sulphur, Oklahoma. Sir, where were you born?
Sir,
Where were you born?
down here at Durant, Oklahoma.
And when's your birthday?
What?
Your birthday.
Oh, March the 13th, 1896.
1896.
Um,
Who is... Go ahead.
91 years old.
91.
I know my age, don't I?
Who is your father?
John J.H. Osborne, Melbourne, Oklahoma. He was a city law there for several years.
And who is your mother?
Huh?
Who was your mother?
Mother? Oh, Ibby Osborne.
What was the first name?
I-B-B-Y. Ibby.
And what was her maiden name?
Roller.
R-O...
L-L-E-R.
E-R.
R-O-L-L-E-R.
Okay. Where was your mother from?
Missouri.
Missouri.
My father was too. Both from Ava, Missouri.
Ava. Did they tell you why they moved to Oklahoma?
Do what?
Did your parents tell you why they moved to Oklahoma?
No, he just didn't tell me nothing about it. He just move.
Tell me about Durant when you were a small boy.
Oh, I just can't remember living there. I was 7 years old when we moved from Durant to what I call my hometown, Melbourne, down here east of Tishomingo.
How big's that town?
Melbourne?
Yeah.
I hate to tell you, you know how big Mill Creek is over here?
Yeah.
Huh?
Not very big.
That's about the size of Millville. It's got one store. Well, Millville's got two stores, and two grocery stores. It's got it's about 200 people, about like Mill Creek over there. You been to Mill Creek, have you?
Yes, sir. You say your father was the city law?
Yeah, city marshal. There for a number of years, a long time.
You ever go around with him when he was making rounds?
Huh?
You ever travel with him when he was making his rounds as marshal?
Yeah.
Tell me some stories that happened.
Well, I'll tell you the worst and most dangerous one. But I didn't go with him. He arrested a man killer for killing a man, and he this killer wanted to, there was trying to arrest. He was at his hideout up at his father's home, his home too, and he sent word to all of the deputies that the high sheriff had at Tishomingo, Oklahoma, that's the county seat, said, John Osborne, that's my daddy's name, he said he wouldn't give up to nobody except John Osborne. Said he wouldn't give up to no law in Johnston County, that's in Tishomingo. And Dad, they called him up and asked him would he go arrest him. He said yeah, and he didn't get any extra money. He just volunteered like he did on his other job, like they're making arrests at my hometown. You know, he asked him when did he want him to go up there and arrest him, and he said, right now, if you're ready. And Dad said, well, go now as any time. But what I think was the brave part of it, and my daddy volunteered when he warned all these deputies. It belonged to Tishomingo, Johnston County, high sheriff, all of his deputies. He warned them that he wouldn't give up to any of them. If they come up there, he'd shoot them down. You see?
Where was he?
Where
was he?
Well, about 4 miles northwest of you've been to Melbourne, haven't you? It's way up on the Blue River, about 4 miles. It's kind of a scenic place. It's it's a big Indian home. You know, there's several of them that own a nice big home, what you call a homestead. You know, and Daddy went up there and arrested him. All he done is just went up there and hollered a couple of times and told him his name was, I'll tell you in a minute, Tom Cheadle was his name. He's a young man. He was still in his 20s, I'd say late 20s, 28 or 29, somewhere along there. He went up there in the hideout where, right about where he, I thought he would be, and he had to holler a couple of times to let him know who he was. He asked him a time or two, was that John Osborne? And he told him yes. And he says, all right, says, I don't think you lied to me. Says, I think you're telling me the truth. And he walked right on out where Dad could see him, and I don't know whether he put handcuffs on him or not, but he took his gun off of him and took him to Tishomingo, and he put him in jail all by himself. Now he didn't have any help, and he told the high sheriff that John Osborne was the only law in Johnston County that he'd give up to.
Why'd he say that? What was the reason?
What was the reason? All right, I can tell you. I think is the reason. You see, he liked Dad. Dad arrested him several times on drunken charges and put him in a little jail at Melbourne, a little concrete jail, overnight till he sobered up, you know. And for some reason he took a liking to Dad, and he wouldn't. He made the statement several times. He wouldn't give up to not any law or a whole bunch of them. He wouldn't give up to any of them except except John Osborne. And that's why I think he's bound to like Dad and thought a lot of him as a lawman, you see, or he would have made that statement in the first place. The high sheriff was going to send some of his deputies up there, or one or two, or what they thought it needed, and that's why I think that he's bound to thought a lot of Dad, or he wouldn't have made that statement. So that's one of the most dangerous and outlaw time that I think my daddy had when he was all time he's a city marshal there.
What had this Tom Cheadle done? What kind of outlaw was he?
Huh?
Oh, what had he done? Just had he killed a man?
Oh yeah, killed a man on Christmas Eve night right there at his father's place. He was still living at home at his dad and mother's home place, you know, up there about 4 miles west and north and west of Melbourne. A nice country home, and that's the way it was. But like I tell you, you asked why and he wanted my dad. He was the only one he made the statement. Dad was the only one he'd let arrest him, and that's about the whole story. So I think you can understand it, because if you could, we'll just say if you'd done something like that, you probably would have a certain law that you was a good friend to, and figured he wouldn't lie on you or wouldn't give you the worst of it. And that's the way it was. He wanted my dad to arrest him, and he swore. He made a statement several times. He'd shoot it out with a whole bunch of Tishomingo laws where he could. He said he wouldn't give up to any of them. Yeah. He said if you send them up there, he said they won't come back alive. The way he put it, says you need their wooden overcoat, called a wooden overcoat, their caskets, you know. And that's what he told the high sheriff. So your guess is as good as mine. Now I'm just going by what was said and done. I remember it pretty well. I was a teenager at that time. I was only 7 years old when we moved from Durant up there, but Dad had been in law for several years before this happened, you see. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's just about the extent of it.
Do you remember Statehood Day?
Huh?
Do you remember Statehood Day, when Oklahoma became a state?
Yeah.
Tell me about that day.
Well, it was 1907, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. All right. That was the year we moved to Melbourne when Dad got a job up there as the law city marshal at Tishomingo, and this wasn't over a year or a couple of years till this happened. Well, I don't remember exactly, but probably it was longer than that. But I remember it was the same year that Oklahoma became a state. So that's
Was there a big celebration that day?
What day the?
Statehood Day. Was there a big celebration in Milburn?
Well, yeah, they did. But if I remember right, we wasn't living there right then. It was just a few months or 6 months after it become a state before we moved to Melbourne. So I was just 7 years old. I don't remember all the details, you know.
When did you start to school?
When I started school, well, I was about a little past 7 years old, between 7 and 8 years old.
About 1904 or 5?
Yeah.
How big was the school?
Well, if I remember right, it was about between 50 and 75 children went there.
How many rooms in the building?
How many rooms? Well, there's downstairs and upstairs. The principal taught mostly upstairs, and grade teachers taught downstairs, you know. And I done told you about what at that time Melbourne was more than 200, but I'm talking about what it is today. It's just about the size of Mill Creek over here. About 200 people.
Did you know Bill Murray?
Yeah, know him in person.
Tell me about him. What kind of man was he?
All right, he was a lawyer there at Tishomingo. He owned what's called a Murray Farm down there, and that A&M College was named after him, you see, and he's what I'd call a big shot back in those days, and it went on then for several years after he lived at Melbourne. At Melbourne. He was a lawyer there at Tishomingo all the time he lived there, and my daddy thought he was the smartest lawyer in Oklahoma. My daddy was law, like I told you, city marshal there, and I've heard my daddy tell a lot of his friends if they want to know anything about law, to go and talk to Bill Murray. The way Dad put it, Dad back in those days, he probably was just as smart as, if not smarter than any lawyer in Oklahoma. Dad thought he was. So I remember Dad rated him pretty high and bragged on him pretty much. So him and Dad was, of course, pretty good friends, and of course Dad voted for him, and he even voted for him when he finally got to be governor. It hadn't been too long, you know, since he was a governor.
Yeah, back in the 30s.
Huh?
Back in the 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's quite a little while.
Yeah.
But of course, Dad boosted for him naturally. But Dad, I'll tell you again, Dad was high on him. He wasn't a dress-up man, but he he was smart. He had had a smart mind. Bill Murray did. A lot of people didn't like Bill Murray for this reason. I bet you've read and heard about it. He wasn't a dress-up man. He wouldn't. He didn't believe in dressing too extra fine. And my dad didn't mind that. He's going with what he knew. He thought Bill Murray knew more than anybody. Which what you read about him and all, I'll bet you say he's a smart man. He had to be a smart man, or he would never have made governor. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
I've heard it told on him. I was just a teenager then. Just a rough joke. A lot of them didn't like him, claim that he had tobacco juice in his whiskers. And you probably heard and read about the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the blizzard of 1911? Big snowstorm.
Snowstorm? Seemed like I do, just slight remembrance of it.
What about the flu epidemic?
Huh?
The flu epidemic.
Yeah?
How bad was that?
Well, I can remember quite a few died with it.
Were you in the Army at that time?
Huh?
Were you in the Army at that time?
No, I was still a teenager. We lived there in Melbourne.
Yeah. When did you join the Army?
October the 3rd, 1917.
Where'd you go for basic training?
Down here at I was first sent to San Antonio, Texas. The camp was full up down there, and they sent us to Fort Worth.
Camp Bowie?
Camp Bowie. Fort Worth. That's where I took my training.
Tell me about basic. What kind of training did you have?
What kind of training? Well, we dug ditches, and went on hikes every day for about, we'd go out about 8-10 miles and dig ditches, for practice. And we done some drilling. We had corporals and sergeants that take us out and drill us every day. I remember all of that. And I want to tell you about flu epidemic when we had a bad time of the flu there at Fort Worth. If you remember or read about it, we had tents instead of barracks. These old round, what they call them, monkey tents, and they burn coal. They get red hot. You could keep pretty warm, but I don't know. Out on that prairie, there was a lot of them died with the flu there that winter of 1917. I remember that very well.
Yeah. How long did your basic last?
Huh?
How long did your basic training last? How many weeks? How many weeks did your basic training last?
How many weeks?
Yeah.
Well, I guess we was before we went across, we We drilled almost a year before we went to France.
What rifle did you train with? You had
What?
the Springfield rifle?
Yeah,
Yeah, you did?
yeah,
Okay.
that's what we had.
So when did you go to France?
Went to France in about the 1st of 1918. As you remember, the war was over. What was it? November the 11th, 1918.
Right.
War was over then, and then of course hostilities were ceased, and we had to wait till we got transportation to get back to the States. I remember that mighty well, and they, so many of them ready to come back at the same time. It took about nearly 6 months. We come back in a stockboat from France to the States. I remember that pretty well too. And it took us, I think it was 11 days, 11 nights. We had engine trouble, and we was anchored out there for about 2-3 days and nights before we got the everything fixed so the boat would run,
Yeah. What boat did you go to France on?
Leviathan. It was in the New York Harbor when they declared war, and of course the U.S. Army had charge of it. And we went overseas on the Leviathan ship. Well, at that time, it is one of the largest one there was going. What they told us.
How many men were on the ship?
You mean how many soldiers?
Yep.
Well, let me see. There were several thousand. I think there's around 1,000 of the crewmen on the boat. That run the boats, I don't remember just exactly how many it held, but it held a bunch of them. It was a big
Yeah.
boat.
Where'd you sleep on the ship?
Well, we had bunks, just kind of like you do on like Navy bunks, kind of. It'd be 3 or 4 bunks in a room, and one soldier would be sleeping out on top of the other, you see.
What about the food on the ship?
The what?
The food on the ship.
Well, it was pretty good, but we got seasick. We had to eat lemons and pickles to get over being seasick, I remember that.
Did you get seasick?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to cross the Atlantic?
I think we went over and let me see now. We went over pretty fast. I think about 5 or 6 days going over, but we was about 10 or 11 days coming back. But we had engine trouble. We was anchored out there 2-3 days or longer, and wasn't even running, just standing still, you know. But we went over on that Leviathan. If I remember right, it wasn't over 5 or 6 days. But coming back, we was 11 days. We was on a stock boat coming back, and that's more of a slow boat and a lot more slower. It didn't make about half the speed that the Leviathan made, you see. We made on that Leviathan 25 and 30 knots. They'd call them knots, but I think knots meant miles, you know, on the ship. But I remember that coming back on that stock boat, man, we was almost 2 weeks coming back from France. As a long ride. And we got sick again because we was about twice as long coming back across as it was going, you know. They was racing them over there, and they would send us in on the fastest ships they had, you know, and of course we made it sooner than if we went on a stock boat. Of course, after the war was over, we wasn't in such a hurry about getting back, and we had to come back on a stock boat. So that's about the way I remember it.
When did you go to the front?
When I went on the front?
Yeah.
Well, now let me see. We didn't go over for quite some time. We wasn't, but we was in France now, understand, 4, 5, or 6 months before we went on the front. But if I remember right, we let me see. The Armistice was signed November 11th, 1918. Our outfit was under shell fire 21 days.
Where was that?
And it's on the Muse Oregon Forest, and counted one of the toughest fighting fronts. And we was under shell fire 21 days before the Armistice was signed. And when it was signed, well, we didn't rush right back, but we had to step on the front long enough to know that they'd signed the Armistice wasn't a false statement, you know. I would say about we was close to the front about 1 or 2 months. But like I said a while ago, we was under shell fire 21 days, and that's when they signed the Armistice. So that's about the best I remember.
Yeah. When you first went into combat, what were you thinking?
Well, we was on the way up to the Muse Oregon Forest. It's over 100 or 200 miles from where you unload off the ship to the front line trenches, you know. So we done a lot of hiking. I don't know. I can't tell you how many days we put in a lot of days of hiking going up to the front, and then we'd have rest periods and kind of drilling periods on the way up to front. You see,
Yeah.
a long roll hike. I'll tell you. Some places, I guess 300 miles from where we unload the ship to up to the front line. So that's about the way I remember it.
Did you think you'd make it out okay?
Huh?
Did you think that you would make it out okay of the war?
Well, now listen, that's a hard question now. I've been told that, well, I guess you read and heard about a bunch of soldiers get killed the first day or first night they went in, you see. And then maybe the fighting would get lighter and they would advance on the enemy, and like I told you a while ago, my outfit was on the front line. I mean, under shell fire. There's what you call it was in action, combat action, for 21 days and 21 nights, and that's counted good because, I guess you heard, read about, and heard a lot of them got killed the first 2-3 days. They went in action, you see.
What does the inside of a trench look like?
The inside of what?
A trench?
About like our trenches here that we had to dig during training camp, you know.
How wide are the trenches?
Well, wide enough for soldiers to get through them, you know.
And how deep are those trenches?
Well, it had to be as high as your head, so you would dodge some of the firing, you know, so you wouldn't get killed in them. And we had what you call foxholes and smaller trenches that we dug while we was advancing on the enemy, you know. And of course they was some of them wasn't over a foot or 2 foot deep. Those what you call foxholes, you know. And you could get killed in them when those 1-pounders go to peppering you. You could get killed in those foxholes.
Yeah. What division were you in?
Division, 36th Division.
36. What company?
Company L, 143rd Infantry.
Tell me about going over the top.
Well, I tell you, that was a pretty rough. I don't know what you know you're in danger. You know and you realize that your life is it's not to be took in a minute. You see, you got that kind of a feeling when you going over the top. You got that feeling that it's your time. It's liable to be in the next few minutes. That's the idea and feeling that you have.
How did you climb out of the trench to go over the top?
How did you climb out?
Yeah.
Well, we there were some places that it wasn't deep as others, you know, just like you seen roads that was more smooth and more rough than others. Kind of that way, you know.
Mm-hmm. Were you ever in those gas attacks?
Ever what?
Were you ever gassed?
Yeah, I got slightly gassed. I liked a few seconds. And it don't take very long for you gotta get that gas mask on before you can get killed by gas just by inhaling 2-3 times. You know, you got to get that gas on in quick time. I think that was about one of the most what do you call it? Dangerous spots you got in. Is when they give the gas alarm, you know, and they'd holler to put on mask, you know, and you'd sure better get busy and put it on just fast as you can.
What was the gas alarm? How do they sound the alarm?
Well, they would. They had a name for it. Let me see what they did call it. It meant to put on your gas mask.
What did it sound like?
Huh?
What did it sound like?
Well, it blew to some kind of a little old horn that's kind of like a horn that bugle blows, you know. Mm-hmm. And they tell you to what was the word they use? I can't call it now. Mm-hmm. I know what they told you when they wanted you to take the gas mask off and say remove mask, and that was when they thought all the gas was cleared and you wouldn't be likely to get any fumes, you know.
Mm-hmm. What kind of gas were you in?
Well, one of them they called phosgene. That was the kind that kind of burn you, you know. It's kind of like you know, kerosene or anything hot, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of burn you.
Can you tell me exactly what you did in the Meuse Argonne?
Yeah. We were in foxholes and advancing on the enemy, and I was in a foxhole right close to a good friend of mine that got killed, and that's when we was having to dig in those little old foxhole that wasn't over a foot deep, wasn't hardly deep enough to hide your body, but some of them were about deep enough to hide your body, but those 1-pounders would scrape the ground, and if it ever hit you, why, those 1-pounders are about the size of your fish, you know. And this friend of mine got killed not any further than you are. His foxhole was like right over there, and mine was right here. And one of those 1-pounders hit him in the side. It just split his stomach almost wide open. he was he was shocked and hurt, so he couldn't even talk, and he died. They picked him up fast as they could and took him to the what you call a emergency hospital, you know, and tried to patch him up and doctor him up, you see. But this guy, he couldn't even talk. He's one of my best friends. He's from my hometown, and he got killed not a bit farther than where you were sitting, but of course we was laying down in those foxholes. We both was facing the enemy, you know, and he got hit in the side, and it was after night. You couldn't hardly tell how big the gas was, but they told me that he got his side cut nearly half open with a 1 pounder.
No, how's that 1 pounder fired?
Huh?
How's that 1 pounder fired? You know, the 1 pounder. How did the Germans fire that?
Well, you know how they shot those things out of a big gun, and they shaped something like a brick, you know, but they had a lot of power to them. They was coming fast and at a good force, you know. When they'd hit you, why, it might near, if it hit you, anything like on your body, why, it just tear a hole there enough that you die, you see. And that's the only way I can describe it.
Mm-hmm. So how long did the Meuse-Argonne last?
Huh?
How long did the Meuse-Argonne last, the battle?
Well, it was going on, I can't tell you exactly, but the fighting was pretty heavy before we went in battle, you see. But it was considered one of the toughest fronts they had up there. The Meuse-Argonne Forest. That was counted one of the real fighting fronts.
What else happened to you there? What else happened?
Well, oh yeah, I got a sentinel wound. If I wanted to take time, I got, you know, those hobnail shoes that got a big old tongue to them. They're heavy shoes, you know. And I got a sentinel woman that went through that hobnail shoe tongue, you know. That the tongue was a little, wasn't as heavy as a shoe, but those sentinels, when they burst, they just tear a hole in you everywhere they hit you. But what I'm trying to tell you, a shrapnel about the size of about like a teaspoon, you know, or maybe smaller, and have a sharp end of it, and it went through that hobnail shoe tongue and stuck in the top of my foot, and we had to wear our shoes 2-3 days, and it caused my foot to swell up about that big, and I had to be sent to the base 36th hospital. I stayed in the base 36th hospital 30 days with that shrapnel wound. You take a steel, if it's just under the hide, little ways, why it'll swell up your foot and cause you to have blood pouring, or it hurts you so bad you can't even walk.
You get a Purple Heart?
Huh?
Did you get a Purple Heart?
No, I didn't get that. They just passed me up. I didn't get allowed for to draw any disability. They kept me at that base hospital about 30 days, like I told you, and they claimed that my foot had healed up, and they doctored me for being gassed too, and swabbed my throat, for getting gassed, and it was I guess we had to stay over there 3 or 4 months before we got transportation back to the States, and they claim I was all right and ready to go home and go back in civilian life and earn my own living. I always did think I should have drawn disability. I got wounded twice. I got slightly wounded with gas, and I got that shrapnel wound right in the top of my instep. And I think that hurt me worse than getting gas, because I wore my shoe too long, and it was hurting just like you'd stick a nail or something in your foot. It's hurting that bad.
When you went over the top, what did you do when you reached the German trenches?
Well, German territory,
Yep.
you mean? Well, we've done just whatever we got orders to do. We didn't. We wasn't allowed to do anything till we was given orders. You see.
So what kind of orders would they give you?
Well, the advance on the enemy, things like that. And they give you orders when to get in the foxhole, And of course we knew enough to do that, and I guess you'd say we was darn glad to do it.
When's the first time you saw the Germans?
Well, we could see in the daytime. We could see them walk around just like you can see people like here, down here, a block or two walking around working. Some of them would be what you call camouflage, where you got a place you run into where you couldn't see them, but we could see the Germans come out of their nest, machine gun nest once in a while, and we'd be given orders to shoot. I've shot in a lot of places where there'd be about 8 or 10 in a camouflage in one place, place where you can't see them, and we'd shoot into that place, which they call them machine gun nests, They would hide in those machine gun nests and shoot Americans, you see. And I can remember when, maybe 40 or 50 of us Americans be shooting at the same machine gun nest and keep shooting at them till we kill most of them. So I remember that.
What's the closest call you had?
Well, I would say the first night that I went in, that's when I got this shrapnel wound and got my gas wound. The first night I went in. And I was worried about my boyfriend, what is from the same town, Melbourne, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I was worried about him, but they soon took him off to the, what do you call it, the
What, the infirmary or the hospital?
front line
Hospital?
Front line hospital.
What was his name?
Jack Palmer.
Jack Palmer. Mm-hmm. What was the weather like at that time?
Well, let me tell you, it rained a lot over there.
Mm-hmm.
It would come a rain sometime in the daytime, come a light shower, nearly enough to get you wet, but not too much. Then it'd quit for a while, and then in an hour or two, it'd come another light rain. That's the way it done in France. Just come a light shower every 2 hours, something like that.
What was the mud like over there?
The what?
The mud?
Mud?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't too much mud. It was kind of I'd call it kind of a red clay like dirt.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't get too muddy. I remember we could walk on it pretty well with those hobnail shoes. But that shrapnel I got, it went through my hobnail shoe, and that really hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll bet you say if you'd have got that bad wounded, you ought to draw a disability from it.
Mm-hmm.
I got wounded twice, a shrapnel wound and a gas wound. And they patched me up and said I was able to go back in civilian life and I earn my own living.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I've thought about that a lot of times.
When the Germans went over the top to attack you, what were you thinking?
Well, we forced to fight them then, and maybe we'd be enough of us Americans to force them back, make them retreat. We had to either fight or get killed, you know.
Ever have any hand-to-hand combat?
Any what?
Hand-to-hand combat with the Germans?
Well, pretty close here. Not really close enough to hit them with your fist, but close enough to use a bayonet, you know.
You ever have to use a bayonet on the Germans?
Yeah, we've had to use bayonets at different times.
Tell me what happened.
Well, you'd have to do some pretty good fighting and then get if it was outnumbered, you'd have to find a foxhole. You see, that's what they call having you outnumbered and driving you back. You see.
That happened to you?
Huh?
Did that happen to you?
Not many times, but a few times, yeah.
So did you ever have to use your bayonet on a German?
Well, no, I wasn't all of that close. As like I said a while ago, we'd have to shoot it maybe 200-300 yards to where there was camouflage hid in those machine gun nests, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We got that close to them. But see, most of the time we had them on the run, and they would run back so far and get in their trenches, and that would slack the fighting for a while, you see.
Mm-hmm. Were you at St. Mihiel?
Huh?
Were you at the Battle of St. Mihiel?
Yeah.
Tell me about that battle.
Well, it was something all about the same. He was in danger to being any of them.
Mm-hmm. What's your best memory of France?
In France?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had to sleep in those stock barns, you know. That's, you've heard about nearly all Americans got cooties, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we got cooties at. You know what a big old barn is, and some of them had upstairs to them, and they didn't have nothing about one blanket and a pillar to sleep on, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a rough bed, what it was. That's where we got our cooties.
What was the reaction of the French people to the Americans?
Well, you mean how they treated the American soldiers?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say pretty good. They seemed like proud of us, and was glad and thankful we was helping them out. You see, French people was pretty nice. They should have been. We were saving a lot of their lives and their country, you know. They should have been proud and been our friends.
Did you go to Paris?
Yeah.
What did you think of Paris?
Paris is the grandest place I've seen over there.
Mm-hmm. How'd the people of Paris treat you?
Just fine. They called us soldats. They couldn't talk our language. They called us American soldats. And I'll tell you one thing I don't know. You know, we got that French money. It was something like our greenback 20 and 10 and 20 and $1 bills. It wasn't like our money, but it's made on the same order, you know. And what I'm trying to tell you, they cheated us. They'd charge us 3 or 4 francs for a bunch of grapes when it wasn't worth but about 1 franc. You see, we couldn't count that money, and they'd charge us maybe 15, 20 francs for maybe $3 or $4 worth of grapes and food we got off of them, you know.
Mm-hmm. Where? Oh, go ahead. Where were you when the war ended?
I don't know how I do. We was on the front line, ready to go over the top. And what was we glad when they shot up a lot of ammunition, but if the Germans made an attack, that we'd have been awful fix. But they was pretty sure that it was it wasn't false, you know, about signing it.
So how did you and your friends celebrate the armistice?
Do what?
How did you and your friends celebrate the armistice?
Well, we shot up a lot of ammunition, and that's what I was going to say. If it'd been a false alarm, we'd have been in a terrible shape. Mm-hmm. We did. We shot up a lot of ammunition.
What else did you do?
Well, we hollered and took on and felt pretty good over it. That's all I can say.
Were there any Germans in the area?
Yeah.
Were they celebrating too?
Yeah, they was. They wasn't trying to kill us after that news come out, you know. Mm-hmm. They was just kind of, you know, like you'd quit anything, you know.
Did you see any Germans that day? Did you get together?
Yeah, we got pretty close. They'd wave at us, you know, and try to be friends and friendly, you know. Mm-hmm. They done that too. Mm-hmm. They was kind of heavy set. The Germans was pretty husky soldiers. Mm-hmm. They wasn't what you call the weak kind at all.
Mm-hmm. What ship did you return to the States on?
Well, all I know is just a stockboat. It's what they use to ship stock over on, you know. Mm-hmm. Call it a stockboat. I don't know whether that in the name or not.
Where did you land in the States?
At Newport News, Virginia. Mm-hmm. That's where we landed, and we turned in all of our uniforms that we was wearing that had cooties in them, you know, and went through the delouser and got new, clean underwear and uniforms to wear at home. That was when we was getting ready to go shipped out to our hometown to be discharged. Mm-hmm. My bunch got discharged down at Little Rock, Arkansas.
Camp Robinson?
Yeah.
Did you return to Oklahoma then?
Yeah.
To Milburn?
Yeah. Got one uniform and a ticket home, and I don't know, $100 or $150 in a uniform and our ticket home.
What'd you do after the war?
Well, I finally got to. I had borrowed money to go back and see. I was running the meat market when I got in service, and I borrowed money from my daddy to go back in the meat market business. Mm-hmm. What is that? Is that picking up what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, where do you take that to?
To Oklahoma City, to the archives. So when people study World War I, they'll listen to your interview, so they can study about the war.
Well, if you happen to tell anything wrong, can they do anything with you?
No.
You know that longer time you forget a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How did the Depression affect you, the 1930s?
Boy, howdy. It hit me pretty hard, like most of them. I lost every dollar I had in the grocery business down here at Aldous, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a tough time in the 30s.
What, did you lose your money in the bank?
Huh?
Did you lose your money in the bank?
No. Oh, yeah. You mean what I had it in?
Yeah.
I lost it in the grocery business. I done credit when I sold my groceries. I didn't have money to restock it, you see. And the only thing that I felt not too bad about it, where I lost $15,000 or $20,000. A lot of them lost $100,000 and more, and lost their home and store and everything. You know, they said to walk out. There's an old saying though, like if I lost $15,000 or $20,000, that's about all I had. Why, a lot of them lost $200,000-300,000, you know. So a lot of them lost on a larger scale than others did, you know.
What was the name of your store?
Huh?
What was the name of your store?
Osborne Grocery and Market.
Where was it located?
Aldous, Oklahoma.
Altus.
502 North Hightower was a suburb store. It wasn't downtown. It was on the highway on the north part of Aldous.
How bad were the dust storms around Altus?
Pretty bad. It's pretty bad, and you know, Oklahoma got to where it's called the Dust Bowl of States, you know.
Yeah. Ever think about going to California?
Went back then?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I went.
You did?
Didn't do any good. Went out there practically broke, and if you're not experienced a fruit picker, you can't make your boardroom picking fruit.
How'd you travel to California?
How to travel? Well, I had an old Model T car and not enough money to get out there. We had to go to work as soon as you got out there, you know.
Where'd you work in California?
Well, up in the northern part, where the fruit farms are, you know.
Did you consider yourself an Okie?
Yeah, but they sure made fun of the Okies. They call them Okies from a dust bowl. That's what California people call them.
What kind of fruit were you picking out there?
Oh, apricots and grapes and I don't know. They had several different kinds. But I'm telling you, that's just like picking cotton. If you're not an experienced cotton picker, you can't make your board room picking cotton. That same way we go in California, and if you're not experienced, you can't make your board room picking fruit.
Yeah. Tell me about the trip to California.
Well, we went out there and had to take the first job we got, and
What'd you pack to take with you?
huh?
What did you pack to take to California?
Well, we didn't pack much of anything except, we did two little bedding to sleep on, you know.
Now, who all went with you?
Well, I had my wife then, and I had a little boy by my other marriage, and she had some girls. We all worked, but it took every dollar we had to live, you know.
You have any trouble getting to California?
How you mean?
I mean, on the trip to California. Like the car break down or anything?
Well, yeah, we had several flats, a Model T car, you know, and they wasn't in very good shape.
What was the worst part of the trip?
Well, I'd say going out there is about as bad. You see, you got to go through Arizona, and that's a hot state, you know. They had people out there on the desert with Ford pickup cars with 2-3 barrels of ice water, and they charge you 10 cents a cup. You know how these tin cups are. It'll hold about a pint. It's got a handle on it, you know. And we'd have to stop at those places and pay 10 cents a cup to drink. Then if we run out of water with in the car, we had to pay 10 cents a cup to put in the car. That was tough too. And we was going on about half rations. What we ate. Pretty tough. We got out there and had picking fruit just about halfway paid for our food, you know. And you just couldn't make it, that's all.
Did you live in those labor camps?
Yeah, I think that's what you call them.
What were those like, those labor camps?
Oh, you've seen cheap tourist camps, haven't you? Mm-hmm. Like they call them. What do they call them? Low rental.
Yeah, low rent housing, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Low rent housing, and they call them. I forget what they did call them. But you rent them pretty cheap because they wasn't hardly fit to live in.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie The Grapes of Wrath? Okay, that was about the Okies in California.
Yeah.
Would you describe the house that you lived in the labor camp?
Well, it was very, very poor places, I'll put it that way. And I'll tell you, seemed like groceries was kind of reasonable, but trouble of it, you couldn't get enough money ahead to buy any of it. That's your worst trouble.
Yeah. How were those houses furnished, those labor camps?
Oh, just a bed and a cook stove. Very, very poorly furnished.
And how many rooms?
Oh, about, some of them just had a kitchen and one or two beds in a big room like this is a room. Have it about twice as big as this room. Have a little out of a stove and maybe ice box and a little table to eat on,
Yeah.
you know.
So the bedroom was maybe 12 feet square?
Yeah.
Something like that? Okay.
They'd have sometime have to have two, 3 beds in there, or maybe a bed or two made down on the floor. It was that bad.
Where were the toilets?
Huh?
Where were the toilets in those houses?
Oh, they'd have them, what you call the outdoor
Yeah.
latrine, you know.
A privy?
Privy or latrine. Kind of like the army on the smaller buildings, you know.
Did you have running water in those houses?
Didn't have too good water, no.
Where was the water system?
Well, it was out of a hydrant, but sometime it was pretty warm.
So, how long were you in California?
Well, not too long. We got away from there as soon as we made enough money.
You come back to Oklahoma? And where'd you settle?
Well, we come back to some of the same places where we had lived, you know, and finally managed to get work enough to get by on.
So what did you do during World War II?
Worked at meat market.
Where?
Well, out as Oklahoma. That's where I went broke at.
So you returned to Altus?
Huh?
You had returned to Altus?
Yeah.
Did you do any work at the Air Force base there during the war?
I lived there right about the time, well, I'd say 2-3 weeks. That's when we went to California.
Yeah.
I was when broke it out. We had an old Model T car and little gasoline money, and struck out to California. And we wasn't out there over 2-3 weeks, so we made enough to come back on, you know.
Well, what else you want to talk about?
Huh?
Anything else you want to talk about the old days?
Well, you mean what we done when we come back?
Yeah.
Well, just most anything we get to do.
Anything else about the war that you can remember?
About the war?
Yeah.
Well, you heard the old saying, war is like Sherman said it was hell, and some of them thought he made it pretty mild.
Well, Mr. Osborne, I want to thank you.
Yeah. Do you think, well, what I'm trying to tell you, it looked like that more people would have died from a lack of food than what were. They all seemed to live over the hard times, and and going without half enough food. Can you figure that out? I can't.
No.
I can't how to figure it out.
That's back in the 30s.
If you don't have a proper food, you don't have strength enough to work.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to tell you, I don't see how half of them lived. Do you?
No.
How can a man work when he's lost a lot of weight and don't have enough to eat?
How'd you all live?
Well, we just existed, is all I can tell you.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, you about through?
Yeah.